Hey, what's up, guys? Alright, I'm going to try to go through this pretty quick, trying to make a big long video, because this is a bit more of a ambitious thing by my standards, okay? This video I've actually taken notes, pulled out some comics, and I'll be talking about comics I don't have, and if this thing doesn't run too long, I'll be posting pictures of the comics I don't have, so you'll have a reference to what I'm talking about here. Back in December, I made this video, cookie dough, reflections, shout outs, thank yous, and when I specifically made that video, it was more or less to get a message out to a handful of people that I knew were thinking about getting out of the comic book community, more or less here on YouTube. And what had happened was, a little background real quick, is that I kind of wandered around outside of the comic community here on YouTube, and I'm not going to say this comic book community on here is just wonderful, great people, like minds. You watch the video, because the thing turned into a love letter, more or less, for comics in the community here, and really went places I didn't know it went, and people got a lot out of it, which I thank you guys for the kind words and those that you watched it. I have a playlist of all the follow-up videos that came on there. Now, between a comment by Agent 42Q in his follow-up video, more or less, he talked about the video, and me going around YouTube and seeing other things that are on YouTube, there's no community that I could find like this. It was really an offensive, I don't want to make our community sound good by downing what I found on there, but it was a lot of nasty people, a lot of people talking about issues like racism and stuff, and you could tell they weren't authentic. They were just sort of trying to get hits, videos with girls talking about things with their tits hanging out, boobs hanging out, excuse me, and it just wasn't authentic. I felt like I needed a shower. So, I really appreciate the community and want people to stick out there. And so, in Agent 42Q's video, he made a comment about my comment about the age of collectors. The ones that I know, a majority of them are 30s to 50s and older. It's not picking up it's not like it was. And he made a reference saying that I came from the golden age of collecting, and that just really stuck in my head, because I've never heard a category or a label or an era for the collectors. You got golden age in comics, silver age in comics, and I just thought that was cool. So it kind of stuck in my head. And then several videos came out, people reviewing comics of this Punisher #7 that came out, that referenced a crossover, if I believe, I've never read the comic, of a Daredevil Punisher crossover from the 80s. Well, you combine those, and it made me realize that, crossovers in comics are so commonplace and have been done to death, for like 20 years now. I think starting in '94 with Batman Punisher, it just kind of took off. Batman Spawn, DC versus Marvel, with the great, to me it's the bookend of the golden age of Marvel, was the Justice League, Avengers, and I go on, but they've become so commonplace. I think that my golden age of collecting, there's an excitement that's gone. There's a surprise, a spontaneity, spontaneous moment, all this stuff of it's gone. So let me see where we can go here, because I'm going to talk about the different kinds of crossovers. There's the ones about that are just right there, and they turn into pissing contests because one company doesn't want their heroes to come off losing to another hero, or losing a rep and stuff. And then there's the crossovers of heroes in the same company, which is fine and dandy. And then there's also the secret crossovers that, as a collector, I think everybody should be learning about. I'm big on comic book history. So to start out here, I'm starting back in the 80s and kind of going back. And like I said, I'm going to try to get through this real quick. Now, the Ghost Critics video is the first one was popping in my head, where he talked about the Punisher #7 that came out. And, maybe this is the one, okay, that they're referencing. From what I understand, the heroes don't really show up. There's two detectives, from what I can tell, that are based on Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman from Seven, where they're talking about some stuff that happened in these issues. Now, when you go to the store and you're a teenage kid, we did not have, of course, we did not have internet, and you didn't know what was really coming out till you got to the store. You collected a title and hopefully it'd be on the spinner rack. There was some competition for people who of like minds that were collecting back then. So when you got there and you saw that, oh my God, they've crossed over Daredevil with the Punisher, and you read it, oh my God, I got to go get this. Well, that was a big deal back then. And it was great. It was cool. I mean, it was just part of collecting. And the things that they did, there's a X-Men Fantastic Four, X-Men versus Avengers miniseries announced to come out. Well, it's not really a big deal because they came out with a series of books, 2 miniseries in particular, where Fantastic Four versus X-Men. Okay? And these were great, this was cool. You're like, whoa, and it's on this high-grade paper, and it's collectible. And they had the X-Men versus Avengers with Mark Silvestri doing them back in the 80s, too. It was an event. It was exciting. And, before that, to me, it all really started with, there was a Lois Lane in, like, 63 or something where she met Captain Marvel. But it was not Captain Marvel. It was an homage, I guess, and we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, I guess around the same time, we started out with, and this isn't the first time that they had crossed over, but the Justice League had an annual, about, every, 12, 15 issues or something, you would have Justice League crossing over with Justice Society. Parallel Earth, Earth 1, Earth 2. This is first appearance of the Crime Syndicate. And, these were events. Even if you weren't collecting a book, or if you weren't really collecting Justice League per se, you'd get these. It was some excitement in comics. Okay? And, the guy got bigger there for a while because they brought in the Justice Society, and then they bring in the Legion of Superheroes. Now, the light's not good today. It's raining outside. That's Justice League 147. That's Mordru, and you got Sunboy and Legion there, and then they sit there, and the whole way the comic was to show you who the crossover was good. And these were really good, but I'm not saying they're must reading. The message is that these were events. It's kind of like the movies. Going to the movies used to be an event. And now with started out with VHS and then DVDs and stuff, it's kind of died down. Netflix and stuff. It's not what it was. You used to have cartoons. I was on the tail end of all that. Okay, and and they went on every year. This is what you look forward to. All right, they're back. And then they'd give a big. And then they'd have, and you didn't know they were doing these, and then they'd have like 2 titles crossover where you had to get the whole story, kind of give a rub to another book with a more popular book, or a character with a more popular character, or just 2 characters. But it was fun, and yeah, it probably boosted sales on some books and stuff like that. It was a win-win. Fans were happy, it was exciting, and it wasn't so much a pissing contest and stuff. They kind of got some mileage out of these stories. This is Justice League that crossed over with All-Star Squadron. And they brought back the Crime Syndicate, and they had the Justice Society, and you just read these, and it kept you hooked. You had to go get them. It started that hunt. The thrill of the hunt with comic collecting. Oh my God, and I can't remember the numbers. Gambit, 70, 75 maybe, or something like that. I apologize for not knowing the numbers at the end. He just lost his comic book shop the way he's talking. They closed down, and he was kind of down about, not having where to go get his comics and stuff. And he brought up the fact that, yes, he can go online and do this stuff, but, it's not the same going out there and seeing what you find and looking around and digging through the books and stuff. So it's kind of what, kind of goes with the spirit of the Golden Age collecting. And, this isn't a thorough history of crossovers. It's just to get you on, try to get what I'm getting to say here. And then you had company crossovers, Marvel and DC and stuff. And, this one I particularly enjoyed. In '76, I think they had Superman and Spider-Man team up, and I think I read the thing. The way I remembered it was like 3/4 of the book before they met, and nothing really happened. And you got the idea that it was lame because everybody kind of walked away without their character being. You never really got your answers as a fan. Who could beat who, or who could do this, or who could do that, and between the two, they protected their characters. So, great idea. The execution was kind of bland for it's a pissing contest. But still, it was still exciting. X-Men and Teen Titans. X-Men and Teen Titans actually hit a point where people became aware that these two books were kind of neck and neck in sales and stuff, and there's a little bit of competition. And DC and Marvel were smart enough to throw everybody for a loop. They teamed them up, and it just these books are still sort of sought out by older collectors because they were event. They got an emotional response. It was fun. Okay, now that's the official crossovers and things that were kind of obvious, and there's subtle things that people would pick up on if they were comic book fans to do. I'm trying to figure out where to start here. Now, if you're still hanging in there with me. Tales of the Teen Titans. I got this a couple weeks ago, and I heard about this, but I wasn't where it was going. That's the Recombatants, okay? Tales of the Teen Titans number 48. And I actually did a little research on this, and it turns out this was done for fun, okay? It's what they're saying. A lot of this stuff is done for fun from here on out. But it's an unofficial crossover with the DNA agents. What they did was they tell a story. And then they came up with characters altered just enough to where, legalities wouldn't come in. This is the DNA agents. Okay? The DNA agents fight Project Youngblood. Nothing to do with Image. Okay? And they are thinly disguised versions of the Teen Titans. Okay? Black Owl was, Nightwing, and Roboto was Cyborg, Celestial was Starfire, Amazing Girl was Wonder Girl, and Harpstring down there, I believe it was going to be Jericho. He doesn't really talk. Now, what was cool is it was the same story told from viewpoints of those two teams, and to just give it an ending. The Project Youngblood, I believe, sacrificed themselves at the end of the DNA Agents, and the Recombatants sacrificed themselves at the end of Teen Titans. Pure fun. I mean, who would have known? Unofficial crossovers is what we're talking about. And you didn't know it. It wasn't obvious. If you didn't know what the other one was doing, if you didn't run across the comic, you really had no idea. And then word of mouth would spread, and maybe a few years later, you'd hear people talking in an article, Thrill the Hunt is back. And they had some fun with this. Another homage here. I mentioned Lois Lane meeting Captain Marvel. That you had Superman meeting Captain Thunder, and this is actually sort of a I guess maybe a cult sought out book for Superman versus Captain Marvel. Anybody that knows comic book history knows that Captain Marvel outsold Superman during the 40s, and there was a big legal battle that nobody knew was going on from the 40s to the 50s, and DC ended up finally buying out Captain Marvel, and then on and on and on. So you get this, and you know who it is, and you're like, I'm finally getting to see it. Okay, and here's where I'm going to try to be clear and just kind of give you the smell of what was going on. As a collector and stuff, these guys, there was everybody sort of pictured there was a DC and Marvel had a rivalry. Turns out it was probably more of a friendly rivalry, because what happened was that the generation of comic book writers that came in the late 60s and 70s, Lin Wynn, Marv Wolfman, Steve Englehart, all these guys, they were comic book fans coming into comics, and people were looking at them like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to work in comics? It was just not an industry to be proud of being in at the time. It was a job. I met some of these artists and stuff from the Golden Age and stuff like that, Silver Age, at the comic book convention here and there, and they just shake their head. They don't understand why it's so popular. Why would anybody want to work in this? Lin Wynn left, I don't know if it was DC or Marvel, and ended up working for Gold Key. And a lot of people don't know he wrote a lot of Star Trek books for Gold Key. And where he was a fan of the show, of sci-fi and stuff, he was able to fix a few things in the books. But when he walked right out of one office after being fired or quitting or something, he walked right into the Gold Key office. I mean, within an hour, he knew where it was. And when he said he wanted to write comics, they were like, "Why?" I mean, they hired him, but they were like, "Why do you want to do this?" So these guys loved comics, and they made it fun, and they were all friends and stuff. So there's things, they were obvious, but you didn't know the story behind it, so it's kind of tongue-in-cheek. Is this a slap at Marvel? Is this the rivalry? It was awesome. And it kind of, one of the books I wanted to bring up was, Avengers number 70. Now, this Squad and Sinister, from what I remember, I haven't read these in a while, is not the same as the Squadron Sinister, Squadron Supreme, whatever, that popped up in 85, a year and a half later. I can't remember if they were bi-monthly or not. But anyway, Game Master and Kong the Conqueror have a bet, and Grey Master is able to alter history on 4 individuals to turn them into, Hyperion, Dr. Spectrum, the Wizard, and, Nighthawk. And, so you have your Justice League versus the Avengers. Now, again, it was all friendly and stuff. And here's where I'm going off what I usually do because I don't have the book. Issue 85 of the Avengers actually crosses over with Justice League of America number 75, which I thought I had. Maybe I've misplaced it or something. But in this one, they end up going to a parallel universe. I don't remember what they called it, dimension or something. A few of the Avengers. Mine's beat up. And you have Scarlet Witch and Giant Man and all these guys, going to another dimension there. Landing on another Earth. I can kind of look. And they start noticing that, this something is different. And I'm hurrying. Should have had these marked. And they enter the mansion, and they get attacked by Nighthawk, and they meet Squadron Supreme. Loosely disguised Justice League of America at the time. So what they did is, in Justice League 75, they introduced a few characters. Now, these are the same characters just years later. We'll go with the mileage of this. Well, they meet some Avengers type. And that's Scarlet Witch, and that's supposed to be Thor. And Blue Jay is kind of a combination between Wasp and Ant-Man. You get what I'm saying? They come from a whole world. So we did our version of Justice League, so we're going to do our version of Avengers, all in fun. And the mileage came out of these guys. They popped back up, Justice League in 87. And they just went with these characters, man. We ended up going to their world in Justice League Quarterly. You're seeing, the Avengers done Squadron Supreme style, if you will, an homage and what's going on in the world and how the world was destroyed. And I think they had Johnny Quick or something, or I can't remember. They had a speedster that stayed behind and he didn't die, and they were all mad about it and stuff. And again, I got it. I just don't know where it's at. And, they still got mileage. 3 years later, we get to see the villains of that world with the Extremist. Okay? And Lord Havoc is basically Doctor Doom, and then you have a Dr. Diehard who's Magneto. You got a guy here who is Dr. Octopus, and over here we have Sabretooth, an homage, and up here we have Dreamslayer, who is more or less Dormammu, I believe, from Doctor Strange. And it's great stories, man. I mean, you're reading this and you know it's Marvel. Here's a better picture of everybody. Okay. And that was the fun of it. And now getting on to the big thing. This is where I took some notes. They're in comics. Len Wein, Steve Englehart, and Gary Conway all got together. And what they did is they were each one was working on a book. 2 at Marvel, 1 at DC. And they created a town called Rutland, Vermont. I don't know if it's really a town or not, but every year they have an event. It's the Rutland Halloween Parade. And they have a Halloween parade going through this town, and everybody's dressed up in different costumes. Thus, you were able to have Spider-Man and Captain America and stuff in a DC book, because it's not really them, it's somebody dressed up. And they were able to, they did the same thing at Marvel. The 3 big books that they did this in was Amazing Adventure 16, remember this, Justice League 103, and Thor 207. These guys, Len Wein, Gary Conway, Steve Englehart, and Len Wein's wife, Glennis, are in the book, and they go through these 3 books, and they're meeting people from the parade and in the town. I have one of them. Okay? And what they did was, this is actually one story. Each one is standalone, but you see, there's four guys going through the town. And there's people dressed up. There's the big parade. And here's where it hits. They start meeting people dressed up. There's a thinly veiled Captain America throwing his shield at Thor. And adding strains of Supergirl. I mean, they mixed it up. And there was more than this that went through. They got a little Spider-Man in there. But it's not Spider-Man. Okay? A thinly Thor. A guy dressed up like Thor. And they're fighting these guys. There's a whole story going on here. And they did Captain Marvel. I believe this is before they bought the Fawcett characters. And, Jay Garrick Flash from Earth 2. Sorry if you can't see those, but you get the idea. And I'm trying to find the characters that are walking through this town. Yeah. And there are comic book creators. Steve Englehart, Gary Conway, Lynn Wynn. And they're in all three issues. 2 Marvel, in one. Well, they didn't just waste Rutledge, Vermont in their Halloween event every year. They pop up in Avengers 83. Okay. The same parade. It's the parade. Let me make that clear. Here's the parade again. You got Dr. Doom running around, and you look in the crowd there, you got people dressed up like Daredevil and Captain America, and there's a Batman way back here in the back. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. But now, you get the point. And people dress up like heroes on Halloween. The other issues that this pops up in, this Rutledge, Vermont, Rutland Halloween Parade, is Batman 237, DC Superstars 18, Freedom Fighters 6, Avengers 83, which I showed you, and Avengers 119, and Marvel Feature number 2. Okay, so it was like a tongue-in-cheek secret crossover with all these books. So there you go. Just a little bit of fun from the golden age of collecting comics, and I'm going to try to collect some of those books. I've run a little bit long here, so I'm still going to put the pictures at the end, but they'll go pretty quick. Thanks for hanging in there, guys.